Hello, and welcome to the Be Purely Balanced podcast. I'm Dr. Crystal Couture, and today I'm here with Naomi Love of Wise Womb Medicine. Naomi Love is a wisdom keeper. She carries many lineages, traditions, and wisdom within her. Naomi is a weaver of all things sacred. She has traveled around the world studying, learning, and embodying for over 25 years. Naomi has been immersed in the healing and temple arts her whole life and has worked with over 60,000 clients and has trained over 49 practitioners. Naomi is the creatrix of Wise Womb Medicine Path. She is a wisdom keeper, medicine woman, healer, mentor, ceremonialist, priestess, and teacher, supporting others on their path to remembrance and reconnection with themselves and all that is. Welcome, Naomi.
Thank you, Beauty. Thank you.
It's such a pleasure to have you on the show today.
I'm super honored.
Yay. So let's get started by having you share your own sacred healing journey with our listeners.
Beautiful. That's a really long one. Would you like the shortened version?
Whatever feels right to you.
Yeah. Let's just see. So I'll invite you all to just take a couple deep breaths with me, and we can just all get present and resonant in the same field of energy. So my healing journey really, as often as when I interview folks, I really keep listening and hearing that most of us, what led us to our path is our own experience and our own needs for healing and or embodiment. And so for me, I didn't really grow up in a situation where I had a lot of role models. And I really was searching for community and more magic, and the plants were really what guided me on my journey when I was a child, and kind of started to deepen my work as I got older, was really actually connecting to the rose and then the trees and the plants. And so it really began as I came into this world and has continued ever since. And the seeking, the part of me that is the seeker, I know many of us are seekers out there. And, it always begins when we're younger with looking outside of ourselves and kind of seeking through traveling and learning and experiencing and studying and indoctrinating. I indoctrinated myself a lot with Buddhism and different teachers and philosophies. And then it's like, then you're able to go inside and kind of listen to yourself once you kind of get taught how to do that, because it sounds really easy, but it's not always easy. So that was kind of the beginning of the healing journey. And when I was in herbal school in the 90s, every paper that I wrote, every project that I did was oriented around women's health. In anatomy, we had to do a project, and I painted an anatomical uterus in a very Van Gogh kind of way. Mm-hmm. And I did my thesis on female reproductive health. And it wasn't something that I actually felt like a actual connection to. It was like just what I chose. And over the years, I'm really seeing, wow, that's pretty incredible that's what I chose, and that it's actually become my entire life's work. I wouldn't have imagined that to be so.
Yeah. So was it a situation in which the attraction to some particular type of medicine facilitated this connection to the female reproductive system and the womb?
It feels kind of like honestly, it's like, without knowing that it's what I needed, I just did it because nothing else sounded great. It's not that romantic. I just was kind of like, I'll do a paper on birthing, and I was like, where is this coming from? I've never really wanted kids. I didn't really have a mother, so it was sort of like, why this is, I don't really have a connection to it. And then what's so beautiful is that, because I didn't have a connection to it is probably why I was drawn to it. Right. And over the years, studying with different healers and wisdom keepers, it just kept going deeper and deeper. And then now that I'm older and a little wiser, what I notice about me is I tend to go towards things that I resist a little bit. So the last thing I ever thought I would have done was become a body worker. When I was living in Central America, I was studying the Maya abdominal massage and for yourself. And as I was in this experience, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I had a dream that I moved to Hawaii to study body work so that I could do this work on other people with other people. And I ended up moving to Hawaii, and I went to massage school and I dropped out because I was like, this is not for me. I've already gone to like the best herbal school in the world. So this is like not good quality. And so I ended up apprenticing with this woman and kind of getting my license to touch people through that. And then I became like this master body worker and, massaging people. I never would have thought I would have massaged people with intimacy. It's very intimate and, so it was kind of interesting that became the thing that I was amazing at, because I also wouldn't have thought that was going to be what happened, And then I just kept studying the womb work because it was really so beautiful to learn about my physical body, and that the womb is this beautiful organ that sits in the center of a woman's pelvic bowl. It's in the center of her being. And that this womb moves. It's a suspensory organ. So it moves in and out of optimal position based on different circumstances that we've either experienced or traumas that have happened or ways that we've lived our lives or choices that we've made health-wise or activity-wise. And when I started to learn about that, it helped me to connect more with my divine feminine, which I was, kind of a survivor, and the survivor can be very masculine energy, like, just very trying to just make it work and survive in the world. It's not very feminine and receptive, it's more like an arrow. And so it really helped me to drop into that. And then my most favorite part of that work was, was working with my shamanic teacher and Ann Drucker in Colorado. And she, traditionally in the Maya work, we use a lot of plants and prayers, and we burn herbs. And so it was this bringing together of all these things that I loved as an herbalist, as a nutritional therapist, as a, channel, as a medium, as a touch person. It like brought all of these pieces together. And so that became my life, really.
Wow.
And it's been quite an amazing journey to then go from that and studying and gathering. And then every time a lot of us maybe who are even listening, we study a lot of different things out there. We're like, oh, I'm going to do a Reiki class, and now I'm going to do this, and I'm going to study Tantra, and then I'm going to study here. And what I noticed through my studies is where there were voids still left. And so when I would study one modality, it was missing something else. And when I would study something else, it was like, now I need to do this because this is missing. And so that's what kept guiding me on the journey, was really wanting to be able to offer truly holistic healing to the people that were coming to me, and for myself to have that embodiment, because it's very much in my work that we work through embodiment, and that you have it in your cells. And that's very much the sacred feminine lineage. It's the oral tradition. You hear it over and over and over again in different ways until it becomes you.
Yeah.
And it's been an incredible journey. And I think that the last part of it for me right now has been going into the tantric work. And more that was, again, for myself to realize, wow, I have sort of a disconnection to my sexuality. Even though I'm doing all this womb work, I still noticed that it was actually coming from this very masculine place. And it's going in and we're manipulating the womb and we're coaxing her and we're, but when I started going deeper into the Tao Tantric work, it included breasts and sensuality. And I was like, well, this has been missing, like this is the sacred feminine that I've been missing and that I've been craving so deeply. All the birds are chirping in my background. So that was a huge piece. And so when I started to build the school, Wise Womb Medicine Path, it's really spirit guided me to create this offering because the embodiment is so important. And I've seen, as you shared, like over 60,000 clients. And in that time, I've learned a lot, right? From seeing clients, you start to get like these pictures of kind of personalities and how things work. And there's a really cool thing that happens when you see a lot of clients over a long period of time. And so I started to really see what worked and what didn't work and how to truly support people. And then through my own struggles as well. So somehow within all of that, I started struggling with my menstrual cycle and nobody could figure out what it was. And so the first year of our apprenticeship program in our Wise Womb Medicine Path really gives a practitioner all the foundational pieces that I found no matter who I was going to, they weren't, even though I might have known those things. We all know when we get a cold, it's harder for us to take care of ourselves, right? So absolutely. I went to all of these people and all of these practitioners and, not one person said, chart your cycle. Not one person. I mean, thousands and thousands of, and I'm a womb worker. So thousands and thousands of people and doctors and money and, healers and shamans and practitioners of all sorts. And these basic pieces were never brought in. And so I started to look at, well, if we're going to be working with women, we really need to have a full spectrum of all the foundations of that so that we can truly help them. And that's how I helped myself. Absolutely. So it's been very much a personal healing journey while also a professional healing journey.
I love that. Personal and professional, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to go back to this idea of sort of that connection to the physical and that knowledge that you had and kept building, and how that sort of masculinity, there's masculinity in that, right? There's masculinity in the seeking, there's masculinity in the going and doing, right? And then how that sort of transformed into that more feminine place. And it's just one of these things that I love. I love when we talk about masculine and feminine. And I love the idea of integrating masculine traits with feminine traits within our being because they're both present, right? And so I just wanted to know if you had any notes on that.
Yeah, thank you. So what comes up is, this plane of existence that we're in this ordinary reality is a plane of duality. We have light and dark, and we have good and bad and our perceptions anyway, right? And we have all of this very much a duality, contrasts. And we seem to learn well in the contrasts, by the way, and from the contrasts. And in a way, we need those contrasts to kind of help to understand ourselves. And something about the masculine and feminine feels very important, especially in the time that we're in, where the women are rising and kind of stepping more into their voice. And then also in like transgender communities and the LGBTQ communities, right? There's sometimes like a pushing away. Like if you are a woman and you don't feel like a woman, it's like we kind of push it away. And then there's like, we're wanting to embrace more of the masculine or, either or in either direction. And something that I notice and in my own experience and from what I've witnessed only is we need a balance of both of them. Yeah. And the masculine really holds the container. Yeah. And the feminine is the soft and receptive. It's literally our vagina. Yeah. It's soft and receptive. It's cave. It's intuition. It's going deep and getting quiet. It's the yin. And then the masculine is this yang. It's the, the direct arrow, the lingam. And so we need both of them. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, when I speak to the divine feminine and divine masculine, I'm actually not speaking to like male or female.
Right.
It's more the energy and quality that they bring. So the divine feminine could be the divine yin, and the divine masculine could be the divine yang. And we need both of them in order for wholeness to happen, because the duality is actually sort of the illusion also on this plane, right? And so when we actually come out of that perception of duality, we can actually see the whole picture. So in the same way, the masculine needs the feminine needs the masculine. They are actually one in the wholeness of it.
Yes. That was so beautifully put. Perhaps one of my favorite descriptors ever of masculine and feminine. So
yeah,
thank you
beautiful.
so much.
You're so welcome.
I also wanted to go back to this idea of going toward the things that we resist.
My favorite topic ever.
Yeah. And this, of course, it's a womb topic, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So resistance, I want to speak to first. I actually learned this from Shashi Soluna and Minka DeVos. They do Tao Tantric arts. And she gave me the language for understanding what it was, right? Because we all know what resistance feels like inside of our body on some level, especially if you can take something obvious when somebody asks you to do something and you feel like a no, right? I don't want to. Well, what I started to realize is how much, especially in healing, it shows up with clients and students where they book a session and then they cancel it. Oftentimes that can be resistance, right? Resistance shows up wherever we're on an edge of possibility or awakening.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to learn how to assess what is resistance and what is a no and what is a yes. Because my loves, yeses don't always work. I just had a yes situation where I was like, this person is a yes, I'm going to hire them. They're going to be amazing. It's going to be great. Excuse me. And it was terrible. It turned totally south. However, I learned a lot from it. So it's fine. It is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, but there's that. And then the resistance can be also when we are just at that edge of any kind of self-awareness, and our brain or ego, if you want to call it, will kind of switch things so we can't remember, or we can't quite tap in to that place inside of ourselves. It'll show up and kind of go back to sleep. Like we'll go back into sleep mode if we were a computer, it's like we're almost there and then and we're snoring again, so that's another place that it shows up.
Yeah.
And what I found the most important is, how do you listen to the resistance? And sometimes it needs to be pushed. I noticed this very much. It's actually why I work with apprenticeship programs rather than just trainings. I call it an apprenticeship because we don't mess around. When you sign up, you're in. Because if it's a class, people will be like, oh, just kidding, I can't make it, my daughter's sick. Like all sorts of chaos happens. If you've ever noticed this in any of your own experiences, for those listening, right? Absolutely. You're like going to a session and some dramatic thing happens, and it's really like, it kind of seems like it's the drama's fault.
Right.
But really it can actually be our own inner saboteur that's coming in to create chaos vibrationally because we're afraid to take that leap.
That's powerful.
It's really powerful. And I see it all the time. I see it happen around money with students. I see it happen with clients around, a lot of times, like if you go to a place, like if we're doing a session and we go to a place that's tender, like one time I'll use an example. One time I had a client and they were coming to me for couples, and they were coming to me for vulnerability and intimacy coaching. And so I work a lot with couples in my private work. And when we, probably the 5th session with her, I was finally felt called to just do a guided meditation, basically. It was very sweet, very soft, very gentle, nothing like, outrageous. And her response afterwards was, that was terrible for me.
Whoa.
And I was like, oh, honey, see, this is the thing. That's actually resistance, right? The resistance shows up and says, that wasn't good for me because you touched on a place of vulnerability inside of you and it was too scary.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we contract and we shoot back out and then we project.
Yeah.
And I wish that we all knew that stuff, because this is the stuff that I see that creates disharmony in relationships, friendships, workshops, classes, client dynamics in the world. Is if we knew how to take responsibility for those pieces, like, oh, wow, I'm feeling way too I'm vulnerable. This is scary. Okay. Is this resistance? Is this projection? And then you might ask, how do we know if it's resistance or not? I imagine that would be my question. How do I know? So I want you to ask yourself, is what's before me going to help me grow and evolve and become who I want to be? And am I ready to step to that? Because we don't need to always push resistance. Because if you push resistance, what are you going to get? You resist resistance, you get resistance.
You get more resistance. Absolutely. I think there's definitely something to be said about that identification piece too. Before you even ask a question, it's like, once you feel something, once you feel that contrast, it's like, oh, okay, where am I with this? I'm not really mad at this person, right? Or I'm not really, frustrated. I'm vulnerable.
Yeah, I'm vulnerable. And vulnerability is actually our greatest strength. It's the thing that we're most afraid of, is being seen. And one of the trainings I did, participated in, I think it was on the third day, we had to stand up naked, literally naked, and say what we didn't like about our bodies. Now, let me tell you, at the time, I did not like my body. I was living in Colorado. I was feeling quite puffy and fat and cold, like it was snowing and cold there. And I was white and pale. And we're just like in Bali, and, we have to stand naked in front of everyone and say what we don't like about ourselves. That's literally, to me, one of the most vulnerable things you can do. It's like one of our biggest fears.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And in that training, everything that they presented, almost every single thing, I was like, oh God, oh no. Oh no. And then I was like, and I surrender. I'm here for a reason, and I surrender. And there's a place where you also have to check in. Am I capable of this right now? And can the teacher or the space holder or facilitator or healer, can they hold it?
Yeah.
They're holding the container, so that you can so they're actually doing the masculine. They're holding that amazing, powerful container so that you can drop into your softness and into your surrender, so that you can come into that vulnerability, into the intimacy of seeing into yourself.
Yes.
And I feel like resistance really teaches us who we are. And it teaches us to start to learn to the sensations that are happening in our body. And it also shows me, because sometimes I might believe my feelings.
Yes.
And I act on those feelings thinking that's my truth. But we are not our feelings.
Right.
And so resistance, when you're slowing down and you're listening to, oh, what's happening in my body? Am I contracting? Did I stop breathing? Am I noticing a little fear? Am I angry? Okay, what do I need right now? And then we can soften just a little bit. And then you can ask yourself, is this a leap that I want to take or not?
Yeah. And it's okay when you're not in the space yet where you're ready to take the leap, when the container's not there, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And in those cases, that's part of the purpose of the resistance, right? Because it's serving to protect us.
Yes. It's a beautiful thing, when we have resistance, or I did an interview the other day on codependency, and some of the patterns that are related to that way of being and experiencing in the world. And there's wisdom in all of our patterns, whether functional or dysfunctional. It doesn't really matter. Honestly, at this moment, it matters, like you just said, to know that these things that we have built inside, these ways of being and receiving and acting and reacting, and they came in for a reason.
Yes.
They came in to keep us safe or protect us at some point in time. And sometimes we need to update our system, like, hey, you're safe now. You're not a little kid, and you're a grown up, and you're able to, take care of yourself now, even though you weren't able to then. So there's this beautiful wisdom in that. And that's one thing that I feel like in the healing arts that we're really missing, is really honoring whatever is true, whatever it is, not trying to change it, not trying to put a positive over a negative. Like, if you feel shitty, if you don't feel well that day, you feel kind of crappy. And then you're like, I feel great. I'm happy. And that's your new affirmation. That's just putting a positive over a negative. That's not actually how we do it. Right? We actually need to say, oh, I don't feel great today. And we need to start there by honoring what's actually true rather than trying to change it. Because could you imagine, we all sit with friends or lovers or beloveds, and we want to be heard. Really, right? We want to be understood and felt. So could you imagine if we did that for ourselves?
That's exactly what we need. That's exactly what we need. Wow. Yeah. This is really powerful. I'm absolutely loving this conversation.
Me too.
I want to dive into, first off, womb medicine, right? Wise womb medicine. This idea, first off, what is the womb? And now, what is womb medicine?
Yes, that is a big question. I'm so excited to answer. So first, I'm going to have a little disclaimer. I speak to the womb for myself as a she, because that's how I relate to her. So if those are listening and you don't relate to your womb, or you don't relate to the word she, please just discard it. Don't let it deter you from hearing the message. So for me, my womb is my feminine. It's the inner oracle. So the womb is the uterus, the ovaries, the fallopian tubes, the cervix. And then when I speak to the yoni, I don't know what other people say, so I'll just say what I say. The yoni for me is the whole of that portal from the labia on the external female genitalia all the way into the vaginal canal. And so what I notice is I separate those two, because I've noticed when I do journey work, shamanic journey work, to these organs, to the spirit of the organs, like in Chinese medicine, right? Each of the organs has a spirit. So they actually are very different personalities. So I don't put them into one. The yoni includes the womb, because for me, it doesn't, from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you've heard that word yoni, it's a Sanskrit word that is really representing the sex, the sexuality of women. Organs. And so to me, the uterus is not necessarily the sex organ. The cervix is still involved, but the uterus is really our portal. The cervix is our portal to and from creation. And the uterus is there to hold our menstrual blood, right? To hold a baby and such and so forth. And the ovaries are there as light generators. And so the wise womb medicine path is really the culmination of all of my studies and experiences working with clients and students, and working with myself, and creating a systematic body of work. So the goal is, like, similarly to Ayurveda, which, I am nowhere near Ayurveda. So I'm not saying my work is like the entire magnificent system of Ayurveda, because that is like, thousands and thousands of years old. But it is the culmination of everything that I've learned and studied. So when we're looking at the wise womb medicine, we're looking at the whole person. We're looking not just at what the placement of the womb is, where the womb is. We're not looking at just what you're eating and how you're eating and the way you're living. And we're looking at also at, your relationships, and how your relationship is to yourself, and how your relationship is to the earth, how your relationship is to all of your relations, basically. Everything that you interact with, everything that you do. So we don't separate it out. And what I noticed a lot with when I was going through my own womb struggles was that it was separate. It's like a nutritional therapist you go to for food. This person you go to for that. This person you go to for this. So I've really created this systematic body of work so that we can really actually tend to the whole of a woman. And we actually also work with men. It's just we call ourselves Wise Womb Medicine Path. So the work is actually very supportive for men and also transgender. So I personally, in my private practice, also work with folks who have gone from gender modification surgery from male to female. And we actually go in and we build a spiritual womb and we build a connection to that, because there can be a sadness around when you don't identify, when you haven't been a woman and you identify as one, and then you haven't been able to have children. Yes. There is a deep longing and sadness also to connect to that part of the body that didn't exist.
Yeah.
So we blend a lot of different practices in Tantra and Tao Tantra and self-care practices and self-massage and herbal medicine and all sorts of different nutritional therapy, shamanic work. A lot of what we were speaking of earlier with the resistance and the masculine and feminine, to me, that's like about the temple work is what I call that. And we do a lot of forgiveness rituals and all sorts of practices to really make room for the fullness of ourselves to exist in truth, because we know that the more that we become clear with ourselves in our own energy fields, connected to our truth, the more that we have a little bit of ease and flow in how we relate and how we show up and what choices we make, because we're building that strong relationship to ourself.
So the essence of womb medicine, energetically and scientifically, really comes from this idea of relating and relationships, and those internal relationships as well as the external relationships. Yeah. So what go ahead.
I was just going to say the womb is, it's the center of our body. And so one of our Maya shamans would say, if a woman's womb is out of alignment, she will be out of alignment emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Dana Lihiopanti, he was one of my teachers studied with. And, I used to be very much immersed in the Maya abdominal massage realm of things and very much worked with the Maya lineage. And through building the school in this way, I actually let go of the identification with a culture that I am not. And I really just want to take a moment to honor the lineages that have shared their wisdoms with me to get me to this moment, to have this embodiment that I have, and to share it in a way that's a little bit more neutral, so that I'm not claiming any sort of like, I'm a Maya abdominal massage practitioner or therapist or whatever it is, because for me, I'm not Mayan. And I really want to just honor Donna Lihiopanti, who was the teacher of that work, and Miss Beatrice Bates and Granny Hortense, who I learned from in Belize in Guatemala, and really just honor those lineages and say thank you for all that they brought. And then it's so beautiful, because when we learn things like this, we can take it in, it becomes a part of us. And sometimes we forget to acknowledge the people who inspired us to receive those transmissions into our bones.
Yeah.
So the womb is really affects us and has a spiritual component, an emotional component, and a physical component. And so we really work on all of those levels. And the physical component has not only the physical placement of the uterus, but, how we eat and how we nourish ourselves, our relationship to our body, sexuality, trauma. I mean, the list is, very long. I have a 3-year program teaching all about it. Yeah, I like to go in depth. But the last thing that I want to say about the womb is that when we are in right relationship with our center, the womb can actually be our inner oracle. It is the place of our ancestors. It is connected to the great womb web of creation. It's connected to Mother Earth. and it is literally our center. And it has a direct channel line that connects to the heart. And then the womb connects to our third eye as well. So it can actually, when we're clear, it can actually bring more clear sight when whatever is being stored here in the pelvis and the pelvic armor band, as Wilhelm Reich would say, yes, in the womb space, the more that we're clear, the more that we can actually see with clarity.
I have to say, I think it's hilarious that you said, I like to go deep. And of course, your business is wise womb medicine.
I really do. It's true.
I just to lighten things up for, for kicks here, but the depth of the conversation is obvious and palpable in every way.
Yes.
So we can tell you like to go deep. You like that.
I love to go deep. And one of my friends, I was just having dinner with her the other day, and she was like, "You are such a comedian too." And when I'm teaching, I also keep it in sessions. It's like I go deep, and there's also humor and joy. It doesn't have to be scary. So one of the things I notice is that the world right now really wants to dive into, a lot of people will say, want to dive into the sacred feminine healing, want to dive into womb work, but I'm noticing that they're hovering above.
Yes.
They're not actually wanting to go there. They don't actually want to do the work. From what I'm seeing, I can only speak to what I'm seeing right now in this day and time.
I see it too.
And so, that's resistance on some level. And it's beautiful to start there. It's like dipping your toe in. You can dip your toe in, and then you can go a little bit more. And then some of us just want to jump all the way in. It depends.
I do.
And so I really see that a lot right now. The womb work is becoming very popular. It's like a new buzzword or something, which I was amazed by, because I was in private practice, just, in the fields, I want to say, like digging the trenches with the people. And then I looked up on social media, and it was like womb explosion. And I was like, wow, this is so beautiful that that's happening. And I just want to make sure that there's integrity with it, that people are really held when they're going to women's circles and when they're going to womb clearing ceremonies and stuff. I can feel a little nervousness around people who are just starting to learn these sorts of things, and they're holding the space for people who have had a lot of trauma. And so one of the things that we do in the school is I'm very much devoted to embodiment, personal healing, doing your work first. So as the way we teach is we teach through personal experience, personal healing, right? And then we go into also holding space for others, but it's like a simultaneous journey. Instead of it's like, I'm just learning this to do for other people, because we really need it in our bones, right? As a healer, as a space holder, if I haven't been there, then I can only hold space to the capacity of how deep I can go inside of myself.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes good sense. And I think that's true with any modality. There's very often, these little buzzes that come up, and then sort of that, as you said, just kind of dipping your toe in and searching about. And I think it's just the evolution. And I think we're tending toward more alternative healing, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
And I think
beautiful.
We're building the skills for it as we go in many cases. But I think the truth rises, to the surface, and the other bits fall away.
Yeah. As we're seeing right now in the news.
Yeah.
The truth is rising from the surface, even if it's hundreds and hundreds of years old.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, it really is. And there is something beautiful that is happening. So the last piece I wanted to say on that is, it's beautiful that people are dipping their toe in. Yeah. And it's beautiful that practitioners are coming out and that it's becoming more popular. That's an amazing, beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. And so for those listening, if you're trying to decide like who to see or how to see, I want to just recommend for you to just close your eyes when you're thinking about it and feel into it. Imagine yourself being held in that situation, or by that practitioner, or by that circle, or that group, or that class, and just close your eyes and just see how it feels in your body. And that's the best way to tell if it's resistance, if it's a no, if it's a yes, or if it's a maybe. And one of my teachers says, if it's a maybe, it's not a yes. Only a yes.
I've heard that before too. Yeah, I love that. Visualization of just placing yourself in the situation and being in that situation and being in the energy, connecting the energy fields to see, is this an energy field I want to participate in? I think is a beautiful, beautiful way to assess where one is at.
And oftentimes, if there's a little fear, that's often resistance. Just saying.
If you could give us 3 sort of quick bullet points of the gifts that womb medicine has given to you, what would they be?
Connection to all of creation, presence, and deepening.
Beautiful. So if there's almost nothing else there, it's just like that's where it's at. That's really what life's about. That's why we're here. Connection to all of creation, presence, and deepening. Yeah. Is there anything, whether it's healing, however it comes to you, is there anything that you feel really drawn to share with our listeners today that might help them to work with their womb or work with any part of themselves, that just to raise their own vibration?
Yes. So one of the biggest things that comes to presence as you ask that question, and almost something I do in every single session that I ever have with a client, is to kind of clear our energetic self so that we can come back to our center. And what I mean by that is, it's sort of like, let's just say that we were magnetic and we walk through the world and we don't realize that we're magnetic, and we have these big energy bubbles around us, let's just say. And these energy bubbles are just like attracting all sorts of different things. There's energy going out that we don't realize that's leaking from us. There's energy coming at us from places we don't even know. And so one of the biggest things is doing something that's called spiritual hygiene. And that can be something as simple as, bathing in a creek, although you all might be where it's cold right now.
I know I am.
I am in Hawaii right now. So bathing in the river or doing a salt bath. We do what's called spiritual bathing. I think it's on our blog, on wisewombmedicinepath.com. And we do spiritual bathing with the plants. This comes from the Maya lineage that I learned it from. And that's a beautiful way to just like clear whatever is there. And then also, or a guided visualization around that. And so I can send you a link. I have one that I recorded for people for free, that you can go to on SoundCloud. Just look up Naomi Love, and it's called Come Home to Your Truest Essence, and it's a 30-minute meditation. And it's just a beautiful way to just clear whatever isn't yours, because my loves, we are not only impacted by what's happening in our direct life and our relationships, but also unknown, right? You might have a stranger who looked at you and was like, meh. And then, that energy can get stuck. It's not to say like, oh, let's all go around trying to protect ourselves. I actually am not about protection. Rather, I'm about the more that we come in to the truth of ourselves, the more that we're radiating our truest essence, that stuff doesn't stick.
Yes.
Right. So really coming back to this place of, also assessing, where is my energy leaking? Where am I worried about a friendship, or where am I holding back something that, I need to speak out loud? Where am I, self-talking in a negative way to myself? Or where am I not listening to my intuition around food or exercise or relating or whatever it is? Just really coming into this place, we call that energy assessment. It's just like looking at what's going out and looking at what's coming in, And so clearing whatever we can that isn't us, because sometimes it's a cumulative. We just got to clear it off. And then we can come back to, oh, this is what it feels like to be me. And honestly, if somebody asked me what I did, that would be what I do. But people often don't understand what that feels like until they've had the feeling of it. Because we are accustomed to, it's like gas and bloating is pretty normal. People might think constipation is normal, right? When once they take the best poop ever, they're like, oh, it's not normal, or once they don't have the gas and bloating, they're like, oh, it's because we normalize these things. And so it can start to feel, when we've accumulated a lot of stuff, it can start to feel normal.
Right. Yeah.
And so that would be my biggest piece. And then the last thing I would say is to close your eyes and just take deep breaths and let your whole body unravel with every exhale. So every inhale just calls you, to your bones, to your body, to your organs, breathing into your pelvis, whether you're a man, all the way down into your bowels, into your lingam, for a woman, all the way into your labia, and then breathing that all the way up to the crown. And then exhale, let everything soften and sink into the earth so that you can just surrender any tension, basically. And the more presence we bring in with breath, the more. I interviewed someone once and they're like, the men need to incarnate into their balls. And I was like, yes, that's what it means to have some balls, right? So, it's like we need to come into our body. And so the easiest, most simple way to do that is to breathe and to surrender the tension.
Absolutely. And these are ancient techniques, in Taoism, Qigong, they talk so much about bringing that breath all the way down to the genitals and playing with, what does it feel like there? Can I feel that inhale? Can I feel that exhale? To practice I love. I also want to make a note. You mentioned the kidneys. You mentioned the bones very, very often, which make me think about the kidneys as an organ in Chinese medicine, and this idea of the kidneys sort of being the essence of our vital life force energy, and the water element, and how the womb is really activated by kidney energy. And I just didn't know, this is more about my curiosity.
Yes, I love it.
We might lose the listeners here, but I didn't know if you wanted to touch upon that at all, because my brain is just going.
Yes. So I studied Taoism a little bit. And so we do a lot of work with the organs and the colors of the organs and the seasons and the foods and the emotions. And, the kidneys govern the sex. And so they are the water element. And they also can hold our perceived negative emotion of fear. And when there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of then tension held in this organ. And so kidney breathing, I love to have people just like lay on the earth when it's not freezing cold, laying on the earth or laying on something warm, and breathing into the backside of your body, into your kidneys, which are located under your rib cage in the kind of upper lower back, but protected by your rib cage. And because people often think they're lower than they are. Yeah. And really just breathing into them. And then you can visualize this beautiful, the color of a lake at the full moon, that dark blue, black color. You want to breathe that into the kidneys, and then you can let the sound out, the sound of choo, to honor the kidney sound, to help move some of that chi. And then what we also do is we breathe from the heart down to the womb. We call it alchemical heart and womb breathing. And it's actually where you take the fire of the heart and you warm the cool waters of the womb and allow that steam to rise basically through our breath. I know this might be a little esoteric for those listening, but just feel it in the essence of what we're speaking to. And then the other way to nourish the kidneys would also be to eat black foods. Yes. And warm foods, and like not drinking the cold water. And all of these things are actually also what we would look at with the womb medicine to make sure that the kidneys are being nourished. I actually this morning was like, oh my God, I need some adaptogens. and some kidney support, just because I've been under a little bit of stress as I just finished one of my only first ever online program that I self-programmed, that I just created all the videos and it's like a lot of stress. And I was like, ah. And so, yeah, supporting yourself and your nervous system is going to absolutely support the kidneys. Yes.
Yes. Yes. I love it. I love the link of how everything comes together. And with these ancient medicines, and this is what you talked about when you started chatting about your program, is this idea of the whole body, and how the whole body, everything in the body relates to everything else and connects to everything else. And it sounds like, while, you know, the womb is your organ, and for great reasons, it's your organ of access into the bodies, into how you're helping people and facilitating healing for people through their own body's mechanisms. It's magnificent. And there are many, many different modalities that access through different points. And it's all great because everything talks to everything. Everything knows everything. And our body is this one complete being, this one creation, this one masculine and feminine being. Yeah. It's beautiful.
It is. It's not separate. That's something that's really important to take note, because that is actually why we weave so many different modalities in to create a system, because we are not separate. Our mind is not separate from our body, separate from our spirit, separate from our experiences, separate from our beliefs, separate from how we eat, separate from how we relate, you know? And so the more holistic, the more that we can truly look and assess at the whole of us and start where we are with integrating or healing or whatever we need, that's the beautiful piece. So to me, any body of work that's really looking at the whole is going to support, for me, it's going to support me more than one that's just like a little tiny piece of it.
Absolutely. Naomi, this has been such a pleasure.
So fun.
Yes. If our listeners want to get in touch with you, probably the easiest way is through your website, I imagine, which of course is going to be published, but it's also the wisewomb.medicinepath.com and naomilove.org. So 2 websites, 2 ways to get in touch. And Naomi's websites are absolutely stunning. She has beautiful pictures of herself, and also I think some of the scenery from her travels, and perhaps from Hawaii. They're absolutely stunning. They're worth having a look at, just to see the beauty of nature and the beauty of this lovely being.
Thank you, Beauty. It's been so fun. For all of you listening, thank you so much. The last thing that I would say is just maybe 3 times a day, put a hand on your belly and a hand on your heart, and just take 3 nice deep breaths and some big sighs. And one thing that we do in our lineage is we just speak the fullness of our name. So you can just speak the fullness of your name as you're deepening your breath, and just go about your day.
Beautiful. Perfect way to end. Thank you so much.
Thank you, love.